I'm going to get on to some advice now. There's all sorts of different advice that people offer out there. And you can get adviced out, or you can be like the cancer hero that does everything. Gets up and meditates for like 3 hours and then runs 10 miles and drinks fruit juices all day long and just, goes to the internet and looks for the next latest thing. You can spend a lot of energy freaking out, right? Doing all that stuff. You might just miss out on your loved ones during the process. So not to say anything there is bad. It's just that you might want to keep it in balance. So, I'll offer this big smorgasbord of advice, realizing that you might want to just start out with a small meal of what's here. So you might listen to your gut, see what resonates, see what makes sense to you there. And things will keep on changing with time. So we're going to start out with some basic advice. And I break it down into body, mind, and spirit, realizing that we're all of those all the time. So these are just different aspects of ourselves. It's artificial to break these things up. But if you're going to remember anything about tonight's talk, this is the number one piece of advice. Number one piece of advice: exercise. Exercise, exercise, exercise. The studies are so clear about this fact. Even people who have just starting on their cancer journey, about to start chemotherapy, the scientific studies show that they have got more energy, better quality of life, they sleep better, and they recover better. So they keep themselves stronger. Exercise changes the hormones in your brain. It releases the happy hormones. If you're depressed, other than taking a medication and changing the chemistry that way, exercise is the easiest way to change the chemistry in your brain and make you feel better. And there's a whole bunch of other studies that show it really influences quality of life in women with breast cancer. No matter where you're at in your journey, try to get out there 3 times a week, 30 minutes, get the heart rate up. Do it with a friend. Now, the point is that oftentimes we get very frustrated and anxious and nervous and upset, and that is life energy in and of itself. What I'm asking is you take some of that frustration and focus it into exercise. Burn off the stress hormones. Get yourself going. Make yourself feel better. Walk with a friend. Do something that helps. And the data shows, here is the knockout data. So they did they watched tens of thousands of nurses for decades. They saw that 3,000 nurses had developed breast cancer, and they interviewed these nurses on average 2 or 3 years after their diagnosis and said, how much exercise are you doing? And then they watched them for 8 years. Do you know the nurses who were walking the equivalent of 3 hours per week or more had a 50% less chance of their cancer coming back than those who had been walking less than an hour per week? So you think about it, you're actually changing the hormones in your body by getting out there and exercising. So that's number one. If you're going to remember anything, exercise. Number 2, in terms of the body, is nutrition, right? You can definitely empower yourself with nutrition. By decreasing the fats in your system, by eating the fruits and vegetables. Honestly, the Canadian Cancer Society has it right, 5 to 10 per day. Mix up the vegetables, colored vegetables, fruits. What they have is antioxidants. It's the substances, the natural substances that prevent further breakdown of the cells. So there's nutrition there. Go see a professional nutritionist. It can really help get you set in the ways there. The data, here's the other fantastic trial. The data showed that they had 2,400 women who had breast cancer and looked like they were going to be cured of their breast cancer. They taught half the women to decrease the fat in their diet, and half the women, they said, do the usual things. Use your usual diet type thing. The women who were taught to decrease the fat in their diet actually were able to do it, so you can actually change your diet. And not only that, the groups were exactly the same, but the women who had changed the fat in their diet had 2.5% less chance of their cancer coming back at 5 years by simply changing the diet. Very simple thing. If I had a drug that gave you a 2.5% improvement, I'd be offering it to you, especially if there were very few side effects. There's no doubt about that. So, exercise, nutrition. Number 3 is maintain a reasonable weight. And in that, you need help with, and especially if you work on exercise and nutrition, and get some professional help, and join curves or whatever you need to do. Those 3 risk factors contribute to about 30% of the risk of breast cancer in our population. So if we had a really good exercise program, good nutrition, maintained a reasonable weight, there'd be 30% less cancer. Now, I'm not trying to blame anybody. What I'm saying is that once you have cancer, you can do the same things, because if it prevents cancer, I would argue it prevents the cells from becoming more aggressive if the cells are in your body. So you want to prevent further mutations or further changes. The 4th pillar, and Grandma had it right, the 4th pillar is sleep. Get a good night's sleep. And what the data is showing there is that there's this hormone that's released if you have a good night's sleep in darkness. And it has to be darkness. Because when you're in the dark, this substance called melatonin is secreted into the body. And the melatonin has an influence on the cellular pathways, the ways that cells proliferate. And so the risk factors are proven. So for instance, air stewardesses that travel north-south have less chance of developing breast cancer than those who travel east-west. Night shift workers, those who are up 3 nights per week, have twice the risk of developing breast cancer than those who don't have to work on the night shift. Yes, there are other factors between those 2 populations, but it makes sense. Even the animal studies where they take samples from women who are either having a good night's sleep or in darkness or not, and they secrete the blood into tumor cells in the rat bellies, and the blood that's there that has melatonin in the women that have a good night's sleep actually able to repress the cancer cells, whereas if you don't have a good night's sleep and don't have the melatonin, you're not able to repress the cells. So those are the big 4 factors. And the 5th factor we're going to do right now together. So if you would be so kind, let's stand up together.